Good morning. This is Carolyn, and I do not know why I feel the need to introduce myself. This is going to be another one of those strange videos, like if I'm in them, they have anything else but strange. This is probably an extra touch of strange. It's been a couple of months, but I had an earlier video where I confessed to something sort of odd about at one time in my life. Far back, even before high school, I had a real fascination for the topic of reincarnation, and I was hypnotized and read books, and I will reinstate what I said before. If there is a door, whether you should open it or not, if you keep knocking on it long enough, eventually you get some sort of answer. And this is another one of these things that I cannot quite explain. It's not like the memory I had of a contraption on my legs, and why I have this burning obsession today to always be walking and working out. But in a way, it could actually really tie in. I know a whole lot about laudanum. You'd have to look it up. It was Victorian. It was very commonplace in Victorian days for pain. I described the bottle perfectly. In fact, I was having a conversation with somebody who was having dental pain, and I said, you know, there's this stuff, it's like cough syrup, only it's real strong. I know it's strong. And I said, the bottle it's got an orange label on it, and it looks like kind of like the shape of a little pint bottle of alcohol. Yeah, I said it's got some codeine in it, and maybe some morphine. And this was a guy I'd only been out with a couple times, right, way back in the day, and he was going, what? I don't think I can buy that over the counter. I said, oh yeah, and it's mild. I said, but as I started thinking about it, I described the bottle, and then I said, yeah, I started thinking, what does this stuff look like? I said, yeah, it's like orange, and it's very thick, dark orange. I said, you put it in a silver spoon, but just a real little bit of it, because it's super strong. I said, it's got a little bit of a bitter taste, but it's also sweet, maybe a little fruity. I said, yeah, I said, you'll know it when you see it, because it's got a skull and crossbones on it. This guy's going, no, there's nothing that you can buy that you're supposed to take that has a skull and crossbones on it. I said, yeah, and I pictured the bottle lid. I said, because it would dry up to this orange, darkish brown stuff around the lid of it. And I said, come on, let's try to find it. So we look for this stuff, and I'm calling it a cough syrup for lack of a better thing. And I said, well, yeah, maybe it's got some opium in it too. And he's saying, no, there's no way that somebody's going to sell you something like that. I said, oh yeah, it's in the drugstores. You could buy it anywhere. I said, at least you used to be able to. And then I started trying to go back and to figure out where this memory came from. It was like before, I have no idea. Only, unlike the contraption that I somehow thought that I had on my legs at one weird point in history, I can remember this bottle of laudanum. And like I said, there was nothing in my lifetime that had a skull and crossbones on it. But yeah, I remember pouring a little bit in a silver spoon, or I'm sure of this, people dipped their fingers in because it took so little of it that it was super, super potent. It took just a little of it. But once I realized what it was, I thought, there is no earthly way that in this lifetime I could know what laudanum was. The only way I could is when my mom went off to work. I had a very elderly grandmother. The only way in this lifetime I would know what laudanum was is if she had it and had hoarded some away. The big point was the orange label, the little squatty type bottle with the skull and crossbones. And I know what it tastes like. I have no idea how I would know. It does not taste that bad. Let me tell you, if you ever drank that cheap rot gut vodka or anything, way worse. Laudanum has a way more mellow taste than that. I remember it actually being good, kind of. I mean, not anything you'd want mass quantities, but good. How do I know that? And once I figured out what it was I was describing, I looked at it and I thought, ugh, given my history, that kind of sounds like something I could see myself wanting, like in a whole nother life, not in my life anymore, and what I choose to. So anyway, that's just another one of those weird memory things, and I will stick to it. If you read a lot of those occult books and all of that, and you have a curiosity about reincarnation and things, think of it this way. Don't you already have enough on your plate just knowing in this lifetime what you have done and what you got to deal with? Are you sure you really want to know? I mean, leave it to me, right? If I was going to try to knock on a door and think maybe I'm going to come up with some hidden talent, and the only thing I now have is some memory from, I don't know what, about some drug that was out of market before I was even born. But that's my experience. I gotta go.